have the main amplifier just above the organ. You need to make sure that it is turned on and then turned off afterwards. There is the on and the off switch. These are the two main front of house speakers. This is where most of the volume for the church will come from. They automatically come on when the amplifier is turned on. The foldback speakers are the two small speakers. That's this one on the left and a similar one on the right. And then we have one main large speaker on the floor. That large speaker puts out a lot of volume, so you've got to be careful just how much you put into that. And this is the other smaller foldback speaker on the right hand side. At the moment, the small speaker on the left side is the only one that is connected to the sound desk. You have to make sure that all of these foldback speakers are individually turned on, as they need their own individual power source. So the large speaker on the floor is connected to the small speaker on the left, and then the small speaker on the right is connected to the large speaker on the floor, that one down there. The sound desk. All channels work the same. So we'll use one channel showing what it is, then we'll come back and tell you what it does. Starting at the top of the desk, the white knob is the input or gain button. Next we have three green knobs. This is a high, medium, low. Next we have two purple knobs, AUX1 and AUX2. It's auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2. Moving down we have a white and a red knob. These are of no interest to us at all. They are for a function that we don't use. Next, we have three push buttons. There's 1 and 2, 2 and 3, and ST. The only button we are interested in is the ST button, this one here. Lastly, we have the volume sliders. This just alters the volume on this particular channel. Again, all 18 channels across the board work exactly the same. As we move across the desk from left to right, we see channels 1 to 6, which are used for the music group microphones. Channel 7 is usually a guitar or a similar instrument, and channel 8 is dedicated to the keyboard. You will see that channel 9 and channel 14 are taped off. These channels are for the ambient microphones and don't need any input at all. That is, we'll leave them alone. So don't touch anything on channels 9 or 14. Channel 10 and channel 11 are for the lapel radio mics, and channel 12 is for a handheld radio mic. The amplifiers for these mics are in a box on the wall behind you. Channel 13 is for data, and channel 15 is the lectern mic. Channel 16 was the organ when it was plugged in, but it's not, so we don't need to play with it. There's nothing on 17 and 18, and 1920 is for playing YouTube videos and anything else off the computer. Moving to the right side of the desk, we see a panel of 12 knobs. That's these ones in here. The only knobs we are interested in here are the two purple knobs marked MON, AUX1 and AUX2. MON is just short for monitor, and auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2. These are the master volume control knobs for auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2. These knobs adjust the volume for every channel on auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2. That's along this row here, right along the desk. Do not adjust MON auxiliary 1. Just leave that one alone. It's the master volume channel for the live stream. Below that, we have a panel with two knobs and a button. This one here. Nothing on this panel is of interest to us. It is a special effects panel. The only thing we need to know is that the button, this one here, is not pushed down. That is, the special effects are not turned on. So it's on if it's pushed down. It needs to be up so that it's not on. Below that again, we have 4 volume sliders. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. These are linked to the white push buttons 1 and 2, 3 and 4. These ones here. These sliders and push buttons have been disconnected so they don't work. Alright? They don't work, and neither do these buttons work either. Lastly, on the far right, we have the master volume slider. That's the red slider. Above the desk, separate from but plugged into the desk, are 2 DI or direct input boxes. That one there and that one there. These are specifically for the live stream and should under no circumstances be unplugged, plugged into, or have buttons pushed or knobs turned. We do have a set of headphones. You can listen in to what is going on going through the sound desk if you wish. So, how does it all work? It's all about balance. The red slider on the far right is the main volume control for the whole desk. You won't get any volume if this is not turned up. The higher you move it, the more volume you will get. You shouldn't want, nor should you need to go any higher than 0 with this slider. You will need to balance the volume using the main red slider, the individual volume sliders, and the gain knob. We'll work with one channel showing how it works, starting at the top of the desk. The white knob is the input or gain knob. This governs how much input is going into the channel. If you have too much input, you will either get distorted sound and or feedback. If you don't have enough input, then it may be difficult to get enough volume using the slider. The problem is, as you increase the volume on the slider, you could overdrive the desk, trying to get more volume from a weak signal, which could result in sound distortion. You need to find the setting on the gain knob where it starts to get edgy or the sound starts to distort, and then back off a bit. So you keep turning it up until it starts sounding scratchy, gets boomy, starts getting noises that you don't want, and you back off. Remember, when you turn the volume up using the slider, you may get an edginess back, so be prepared to back off the gain a wee bit more. So as this goes up, you may need to turn this down. You need to find the balance between input and volume. Next, we have the 3 green knobs: high, medium and low. You can alter the tone of the sound by using these knobs. The top knob alters the high pitch, the middle knob alters the mid-range, and the bottom knob alters the bass sound. Neutral for these knobs is the 12 o'clock position, so turning them to the right will increase, turning them to the left will decrease sound. Be aware that you will increase or decrease the volume by using these knobs. I mostly use them to remove a high pitch edge or to increase or decrease the bass sound. You need to find the balance. So if you turn these up, you may need to turn the slider down. If you turn these down, you may need to turn this up. Next we have the 2 purple knobs: auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2. For me, these are the 2 most dangerous knobs you can play with. It is imperative you don't get them mixed up. The top purple knob, auxiliary 1, is the live stream volume. Unless you know what you're doing, or even if you think you know what you are doing, do not touch these knobs. Leave them alone. You won't hear any volume change in the church if you move these knobs, but the people listening to the live stream will certainly notice the difference. The volume of the live stream is solely governed by this row of knobs, including the Mon Auxiliary 1 knob. The sliders at the bottom of the desk have no effect on the live stream volume. It is important that you remember that the live stream channels are always live. Just because you've turned down or you've turned off the channel using the ST button, the channel is still live through the main stream. This especially affects the lectern mic and the radio and music group mics. Any sound that they pick up will be going out through the live stream. The lower purple knob, Auxiliary 2, is the foldback volume. At the moment, the foldback speakers include the two small speakers on the stands either side at the front and the one large speaker on the floor at the front. Again, the volume of the foldback speakers is governed solely by the Auxiliary 2 knobs. Just these ones here. And the Mon Auxiliary 2 knob here. The volume sliders don't alter the foldback volume. These have no effect on the foldback volume. The foldback volume mainly affects the 11 AM service and specifically the music group. The foldback volume needs to be set individually for each channel in use and done with the main front of house speaker volume turned right down. In other words, you turn the channel volume, slide it down, and you set the foldback volume. There is no volume going through the foldback from the lectern mic, channel 15. This is mainly due to feedback issues, so don't turn Auxiliary 2 up on the lectern mic. If there are two voices and one instrument, you need to hear two voices and one instrument, not one dominant voice and or one dominant instrument with background noise. If the music team say they want more volume because they can't hear, then you need to turn the Auxiliary 2 volume up, not the front of house volume. This is when you would need to turn up the Mon Auxiliary 2 knob, but don't forget to turn it down again afterwards. Now the reason for that is that in this church the sound is different in about 5 or 6 different places. It is different up here at the sound desk to what it is down in the body of the church, and it is different underneath the balcony in the church. It is different in the rear right and left corners of the church. It is different in the front right and left corners of the church, and it is different in the sanctuary. There is very little volume going forward from where the speakers are. And that usually is why the music group needs their foldback speaker facing them, not facing out into the church. It's quite stunning how much volume you cannot hear when you stand behind the speakers. The next two knobs are the white and red knobs. They are of no interest to us at all. I've already covered push buttons 1 and 2. As we said, these do not work. They are linked to the sliders on the right hand side here. They have been disconnected and they do not work. The only one that we are interested in is the ST button, the bottom one. That must be pushed down to turn the channel on. If you want to turn the channel off, then you turn it off. Lastly, we have the individual channel volume sliders. As a general rule, these should not be set to a higher volume setting than the red master volume slider. Quite often they can be set less, but certainly should not go above what the red slider is set on. So if the red slider is down here, the corresponding number, you do not put that above what the red slider is on. 0 is a good number for it to sit on. You should not, if everything is working properly, need these to go up to 0. There is a reason for that, and I will explain it separately. If everything else is set up correctly, then these sliders should be the only thing you need to play with during the service. But again, it's finding the balance between everything else on the desk. You need to listen to how it sounds and tweak things if you think it's needed. The radio lapel mics 10 and 11 and the lectern mic 15 are quite sensitive and can easily get an edge to them. Usually it's because the gain is set too high. If it starts to sound hollow or there's a faint echo, try turning the gain down, and it won't take much, just a little bit. Back it off a little bit. Or you could try taking some of the high pitch using the green buttons. Just lower that a wee bit. If you are playing YouTube videos, channel 19 and 20, it can be tricky as these seem to get recorded at various volume levels, and you may need to adjust the volume on some. Turn up the gain on the quiet ones and then turn it down again for the louder ones. Just use the channel 19. Don't go fiddling with the computer sound. The more volume you use might not be the answer. It usually just adds to the noise. Seek the best quality sound you can get and you will find you don't need so much volume. As a general rule, you should turn down or turn off any mic that is not being used, especially the lectern mic. Either turn it off There it is. And or down. Having said that, you need to be aware of when that mic is coming back into use, so you need to turn it back on. So whatever mics you turn off, anywhere on the desk, you need to be aware when they are going to be used again. If you add a new user to a channel, remember to adjust all the settings, including the white gain knob, the live stream volume, and the foldback volume if needed. If for some reason you unplug something, remember to put it back the way it was. It will save a whole lot of frustration for the next user who's trying to figure out why it's not working. If you can't remember how it went, tell somebody so at least they know where to look. As the sound operator, you need to get to church early to set up the system and have a listen to the music, whether it's YouTube or live music, and do sound checks on all the mics being used. Do not go to sleep at the sound desk. That is figuratively, and sad to say, don't get too involved in the service, because that is when you will forget to do something. You, along with the data person and the live stream person, have an important job to keep the service running smoothly.